Okay, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm just so excited. And we'll get right into the video. Okay. Um, have you ever felt like you're not enough or felt the need to reduce yourself in conversations? Have you felt like you have something to share with the world, but you just can't? Or you struggle to accept compliments? You're always not, you're always trying not to take up space. You procrastinate due to anxiety, depression, or you have self sabotaging thoughts, or you've ever felt incompetent, felt like you're spending your life trying to be what others expect or want you to be, or you're always seeking external validation, struggling with perfectionism, or taking feedback from superiors, or asking God why He let some things happen to you. All of these are evidences of a post traumatic mindset, or what we'll call victimhood. I've been there. Hi, my name is Ajoke, and I'm excited to share something that is very dear to my heart with you today. And I know this would be of significant benefit to you as well. So just let's ride along. And today we're talking about overcoming victimhood and unleashing purpose. I think the first thing is to talk about what victimhood really means. Victimhood is, it generally refers to a state of or perception of being a victim. It's characterized by feelings of powerlessness, suffering, or just being wronged by others. And over time, this could become a mindset or identity. So it's like being in a constant state of mourning over the version of you never met. It's like staying plugged into lies about yourself, about the world, um, and tying your identity to events or occurrences that mostly occurred in your childhood. The challenge with victimhood is the loss of agency due to these experiences. So now you're an adult, but when something has been genuinely taken away from you, and I'm going to share some stories just to help you understand this better as we move forward. But when you've had something genuinely taken away from you, it is easier to manifest learned helplessness, a state of giving up, a state of giving up your agency. And in my own experience, I was molested and abused from the age of 4. And for a long time, my question was, why did this happen to me? Because at this point, as an adult, I realized that I was dealing with behaviors that I had picked up as coping strategies, behaviors that didn't serve my destiny, that didn't serve where I was going. And the truth is that holding on to the anger that you have about your past, it gives you have something to be angry about. It gives you something to build excuses around. And letting go exposes you to the fact that not your abusers, not your perpetrators, but now you actually have to do something. And I think that this is where most people would struggle because what your abusers did to you, what your perpetrators did to you, or the circumstances, the hand that you've been dealt in life, was it right? No. But the call now is for you to wake up from inertia and take agency. And there's that need to believe in what is possible. One thing victimhood, and one thing I've found that victimhood does is that it robs you of purpose. It keeps you devoiced. You're just in the trenches. And I would like to add here that you're not unsuccessful. You're just not fulfilling your purpose because, and I'll share some personal stories because it's not that, you are unsuccessful and you're just generally miserable about your life. Things might be going well. You might have your dream job. You might have things going, but you know beyond any reasonable doubt that you are devoiced. You know that you're muted. You know that there's something brimming under the surface that is waiting to be unleashed. And what purpose does is that it waits for the past to give room for the future you to emerge because it is not your past self that will fulfill purpose. It is the new you that has emerged. And I delve more into these paradigms in my book, Destiny's Calling. But I think many of us don't realize how connected our past experiences are or our childhood experiences or the formative experiences we've had, we don't see the connection between that time in our life and our current lives. The habits that we have currently, the beliefs, even beliefs about self, beliefs about the world, and especially those beliefs and habits that don't serve the future that we envision. So many of us just resort to saying, that's just the way I am, that's how we are in our family. That's just, there's nothing I can do about it. We just give up this agency that we have, or we hide behind secret addictions despite external successes. And I'll read a few paragraphs from this book. It's a phenomenal book. It's a book I recommend. It's How to Hold a Cockroach. Actually, it's not about holding cockroaches. I don't want to hold cockroaches, but it's a very phenomenal book. It's by Matthew Maxwell. And I'm just going to read a few paragraphs to you that highlight what we're saying about victimhood. And it's a story about a boy and a cockroach. It's a very simple story, but when you start to think about it, you realize that it's just telling you about how connected the past is to the present. And many times we don't question these things because being in autopilot mode as an adult is the next thing that happens. Like it's if we don't stay conscious, that's what's just going to happen. We're just going to, keep going and keep going without thinking about why we're doing the things we're doing, without asking ourselves the important question of why am I this way? Why have I, what are these things I'm expressing? Do they serve the future I envision? So The Boy and a Cockroach, chapter 1. Once there was a boy who lived in his home alone. He sat at his table and ate dinner, generally feeling okay about things. As he sat, contentedly chewing, he saw a cockroach crawl onto the table in front of him. It was big, brown, and disgusting. It frightened the boy. He screamed and shouted and wanted the cockroach to go away and never come back. "Go away, cockroach," he yelled. "Leave me alone." But the cockroach just stood there, staring back. The boy hated cockroaches. He hated how they made him feel, anxious and grossed out. The cockroach repulsed him so much that he couldn't eat. He felt this way whenever cockroaches invaded his space like this. "It makes me sick," he thought. He wanted to smash or get rid of it, but the bug was too nasty to get close to. It felt impossible. The boy wondered what made him hate cockroaches so much. He had heard of people in a far-off land that eat cockroaches as snacks. They hold them in their hands with delight, like the boy might hold a strawberry. The thought made him squirm. He couldn't imagine holding a cockroach like that. He remembered a time when he was very young. His mother saw a cockroach and shrieked. "Go away, cockroach," she yelled. "Leave me alone." It scared him to hear his mother scream like that. And in that moment, he began to believe, and that's the important part, he began to believe that cockroaches were gross, dangerous, and scary. And ever since then, he had noticed more and more evidence that it was true. How they would crawl up the wall when he least expected, or sit waiting in the bathroom at night with their scaly bodies and creepy antenna. And everyone else appeared to agree. I'm almost at the end. As time went on, the story seemed so true that he couldn't tell that it was made up. It just became a fact. Cockroaches are gross, dangerous, and scary. And here he was this night at the table, experiencing the impact of what cockroaches had become to him. He was disgusted and upset. He considered all this as he sat there staring at the cockroach, his heart pounding in his chest. Then a little miracle happened. The boy started to realize, and this is the second important part and the last one that I'll share. The boy started to realize that he had been scared of the cockroach, not for what it was, but for what he had believed it was. He questioned for the first time in a very long time how much he actually knew about cockroaches. What are you really? He wondered. He looked at the cockroach with curiosity, the way he would have looked at it when he was a boy, before his mother screamed, and he began to feel compassion. He thought, maybe cockroaches aren't all that different from me. Why did I share that excerpt from that book? You'd realize that the past is so connected to the present, to the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, about the world, to the habits that we've developed, that we sometimes do not even question why we think the way we think, why we act the way we act. And in my case, as an adult, I realized that I had a low tolerance for stress. I struggled with suicidal thoughts, and I was constantly depressed. And this was a few years ago, I would say 3, 4 years ago. And all of this weren't obvious on the external. I was doing well. And that's why I said sometimes it's not even about your life going south and you saying, oh, I have to stop to think. Things could be going well externally, but you just know that you struggle with some things and you need to address those things if you would be able to unleash your purpose and serve your essence to the world. And I struggled with these things in secret. I'll read another excerpt from. If you know me, you probably know that I love reading. So yeah, I'm going to read, and this maybe would be the last excerpt from a book that I will read. But it's actually from my book Blessed Beginnings, and it's something that I shared about my experience to give you some more context. I say, in hindsight, I understand that these experiences have severely damaged my sense of self-worth, esteem, and identity. Often, I felt as though I was in a daze, like my life was enveloped in a fog, and I could sense my mind slowly slipping away. I had also picked up self-pleasuring habits and coping strategies that led me further down the dark alley of shame, guilt, confusion, and a skewed sense of self. By age 9, I had attempted suicide once, and I had incessant suicidal ideations. I just felt worthless. I felt scarred for life and unworthy of life and living. You know, and all of this stemmed from those experiences that I had growing up, those formative experiences. One of my coping strategies was that I would mindlessly scroll through social media. I realized that I had an unhealthy relationship with social media, and I decided that I had to withdraw. So I had to denounce what I would call the silent colonization of my attention, because attention is the currency of life. And what happens when we can't focus on ourselves enough to ask ourselves those important questions of why are things like this? Why am I struggling with these things, in my personal space and things like that? Then what you'd find is that the attention is being colonized, and there are many things that colonize our attention, in our generation. And we need this attention for self-awareness to happen, for you to be able to look beyond the surface, look beneath the surface rather, and find out the things that are driving your current habits, the things that are driving your current interests or the belief systems that you hold. And of course, it won't be that dramatic for many people. Maybe you wouldn't have to take a break from social media. But I did have to do that, to disconnect and pay attention to myself and to see why I felt so discontent. During the years following my leaving social media, I was able to uncover past experiences, patterns, limiting beliefs, many of those things that fueled my current habits. And I'll share some strategies in a bit. The first mental paradigm that I received from the kingdom, I'm going to share that with you. And it is, the moment you begin to focus on your purpose, there is a demand to outgrow self and master your emotions. And you will see that this is framed as a demand because it is up to us to decide if we want to respond to it and say, yes, I am going to now walk on the journey or the healing path that would lead me to outgrow myself and realize that my life is too small to be the center of my existence. And one of the things you would find is that it's not your abusers, it's not your accusers, it's not the perpetrators, it's not anyone that is in the ring with you. It is you in the ring with yourself. And that's what I had to learn, is that the unchecked habits that I had, the dysfunctional patterns, this had gone beyond when I was a child, I was abused. This had gone beyond, I spent most of my teenage life thinking about suicide, struggling with these things, writing scriptures on my wall because I was trying to heal from something. It was beyond that, because the question now was, I do not have anybody else in this ring fighting with me than myself. And so I have to come to a place where I overcome myself. I understand that my life is not the center anymore. I can't keep on revolving around that concentric circle of self. A time has to come that you become discontent with where you are, or you aim higher. Your self-sabotaging beliefs, all those things that tell you, you can't do this because you can't do this because this happened to you. You're not the kind of person who, all of those things, we have to be able to face them and say, okay, where is this coming from? And what do I need to do? What manner of man do I have to become in the now, in my present, in order to be able to deliver this purpose that I have? Because we all do have something, a unique essence to give to the world. And it is a decision that's an uncomfortable one to make, because it says, leave your comfort zone or stay tethered to your past. So it's like a call. It's saying, do you want to stay tethered to your past? Or do you want to step into this unknown space where you navigate your healing, and then you begin to offer yourself to the world in ways that align with your purpose? So what you're doing essentially in this healing space is that we're breaking free from mindset, beliefs that you've come to hold about the world, about yourself, in order to fulfill purpose. I frame that, I think the scripture, and that's my mental paradigm, so I'm going to share that a little bit. It says, except a grain of wheat falls into the ground, it abides alone. And that is one of the first catalysts that I had for healing. It's that there is a demand to now outgrow myself. I can't keep on being devoiced. I can't keep on being silent. And like I said, things were going smoothly, physically speaking. I just knew that there were many things about myself that I felt a deep-seated shame about. And I think many times these conversations are framed in such a way that it seems like, oh, this is a shameful thing, or this is something that you shouldn't be proud about. And honestly, I had to come to a place where I went from, God, why did this happen to me, to understanding that I do have something to offer, not just despite that thing, but because of it, there are things that I do now have to serve to the world that I wouldn't have had. So, in retrospect, I am grateful for those experiences and the post-traumatic growth that has happened as a result of them. And I'll share some more paradigms with you. The question that we may have now is, how do we pursue healing? I think the first thing is to know or to believe that change is possible. Because without that important ingredient of belief in the possibility of change, then it's almost impossible to even embark on the journey. And it's a journey that's gonna, how would I put it? It's gonna test you. It's gonna test you. It's gonna demand things of you that you probably wouldn't have to do. I normally say it's that if you're somebody who just wants to be successful based on worldly standards, there are things you don't have to heal from. There are things about yourself you don't even have to confront. You're just going to be normal. But I never wanted to live a normal life. I've never wanted to live a normal life. And if you're somebody who wants to fulfill purpose, then you're going to have to heal from some things. I'm just going to take a quick water break. Yeah, so you have to believe that change is possible. Another thing is believing that healing is a journey, not a destination. Healing is a journey, not a destination. The next mental paradigm, and this is so powerful that I'm going to share with you, is that purposeful service is the brewing pot for growth and personal mastery. This is also something that I received from the kingdom. Purposeful service is the brewing pot for growth and personal mastery. I think many times when we think about healing, the next question we have is, oh, I'm going to withdraw into myself. I'm going to go unpack my past. I'm going to do this and do that and heal. And then I'm just going to show up in the world, and the world is going to be stunned at all the healing that has happened. I don't think it works that way. Because one of the first things that have to happen is that we acknowledge that it is in the place of service that healing, true healing, can really take place. So the question we need to ask is, where can I serve? And before I unpack this second paradigm, can you let me know in the comment section what you've learned so far, how this is landing for you? I can see your names, and I would love you to engage in one way or the other as we unpack this second paradigm. So, purposeful service is the brewing pot for growth and personal mastery. Take note of the fact that I said purposeful service, because it's not just any kind of service. It's not service in doing all things, all the normal things. It is purposeful service, and I'll unpack this in a minute. When the Lord told me to begin Girls Chat Network, I was almost livid, because it was at a point where I was struggling. I was dealing with my own demons. I was basically saying, I need to heal from some things. I need to confront many things about my past and things like that. I just need to heal enough to face the world. And then he said, then start Girls Chat Network. I was still struggling with undesirable behaviors. I was supposed to now walk others through the journey of unleashing their purpose. And I'm like, what's purpose? I don't even know what purpose means. I'm not even talking about fulfilling purpose. I just want to be fine. I just want to be okay. I just want to stop having consistent suicidal ideations or suicidal thoughts. I just want to be healed from many of those things that happened to me when I was a child, that I can still see effects of those things in my life, you know? So I was pursuing my own healing, and here he was saying, do something that is going to put you out there. Do something that's going to involve other people. Create this community, create this organization. And he began to give me the models, you know, and some of the mental paradigms that I've shared so far are things that we've used at Girls Chat Network. And I was supposed to then walk other people through this journey. And what I found is that doing this unleashed or opened the door for tremendous acceleration in my own growth process. You would have thought that my growth process would have happened in my own space, like, you know, in all the personal things I was doing to heal and to grow. But the remarkable acceleration that I encountered when I started to do this purposeful service, it's so phenomenal. I don't even know how best to unpack that. But I realized that it opened the door to an acceleration in my growth process, because it stopped being about me. My world stopped revolving around me and why I can't do this because, and why I was like this because. And on days when I wouldn't even show up for myself, I had to show up for others. So now I had more reason to study. I had more reason to learn. I had more reason to seek growth. I had more reason to immerse myself in communities that spur growth. You know, you are most likely to let yourself down than to let others down. And that is why service is a huge catalyst for personal growth. And when we talk about healing, I would say that one of the things that has to happen is looking outside of oneself, reading books, seeking mentors or people with similar stories, exploring programs, therapy, whatever. What you're looking for is to have new perspectives. That's the thing you're looking for. And that's what we kind of talked about in this book, How to Hold a Cockroach, earlier, right? You are looking for a new perspective. You want to then be curious about your own life. It's like saying, I want to explore curiosity about my own life at this point. I want to see why things are like this. The danger in this space is that as things unfold, ultimately, what leads to change is what you choose to do with the information you're consuming. What action are you going to take because now you've listened to this, or because you've read a book, or because you've learned something about mindsets, you've learned something about, your paradigms of thinking, you've learned something about value systems, you've learned something about beliefs. What will you do with this knowledge? Because I find that it's very possible to become so engrossed in that space that at some point you're not even healing or growing. You're just consuming information. You're just taking it all in. And I think one of the things that could be helpful in this space, or that I've found helpful, is putting oneself in communities that keeps us accountable and seeking a true understanding about one's identity. Because one of the things that victimhood does is that it gives you mindsets, it gives you ways of perceiving yourself that do not actually align with the truth about you. They don't align with the truth about you, but you've come to hold them, and then they have a huge impact on the way that your life is being driven. I'll share the last gem. One of the things that I received from the kingdom, or that the Lord told me, He said, develop an affinity for execution. Develop an affinity for execution. Because one thing we ought to understand is that once we start to take ourselves seriously, once we start to focus on purpose, there would be a free flow. We'll begin to receive a flow of actionable ideas. And that's why I phrase it as unleashing purpose, because I think many times we're engrossed with finding purpose as though it is something hidden, something out there that, maybe you'd wake up in the morning and you just hear a voice saying, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. But purpose is there. It's a how do I say it? It's the culmination, so to speak, of all the experiences, all the knowledge, all the things, all the different ways that you've interfaced with the world. All of these come into that purpose. And so you would find that there would be a free flow of actionable ideas. And that word, actionable, is very important. Not just ideas, actionable ideas. And one of the things one has to pay attention to here is not to become an idea collector. There are many idea collectors. In fact, I used to be an idea collector. An idea would come to my mind. I would write it down. It would be so beautiful. And I'm like, yes, this is the next revolutionary idea. But then it ends up in my jotter. Miles Monroe said something about the graveyard. He said it is the richest place in the world because many ideas that were not actioned, that were not executed, were actually buried in the graveyard. And it's very possible, especially for myself. I did have that thought thinking, I think execution is for people that are just like, they love to just go. They love to just do things and all of that. And I'm just a cool, calm, collected person. I just love my own personal space and all of that. And I began to understand from the kingdom that it is an acquirable skill. It's not something that some people just have. In fact, it is a skill that is developed and sharpened by doing things consistently. The more you show up, the more you develop this affinity for execution. The more execution becomes a habit for you. The more you are able to move your ideas from your jotter into things that are now physically present in projects and social impact things you're doing, in books you're writing, in podcasts that you're doing, whatever it is. But you realize that you're starting to serve your essence to the world. Serve your essence to the world. Because every single human being has a unique essence to serve to the world. The next question here is, what are the disciplines of destiny? That's the kingdom framing that I received. What are the disciplines of destiny that you need to embrace? Because I think it's you. And I'm going to share this from personal experience, right? You think, what's my purpose? I used to think, I want to find my purpose. What's my real purpose in this life? And I'm like, when I find it, the world is going to know, because I'm just going to keep going and going and going. My dear, when I found my purpose, or when I began to pay attention to myself enough to see the things that were brimming under the surface, I realized that there were some disciplines I had to embrace. And the framing is the disciplines of destiny. because there are some things that has to happen for me to be able to execute these ideas. Because I had picked up some habits, I've lived my life in such a way. I now have systems and structures that served who I was. And now who I'm becoming, these systems, these structures, these habits may not serve my future. And so there are some disciplines I need to embrace. Does it require you waking up earlier? Does it require you being more health conscious in your food choices? I think sometimes we live in autopilot mode, or we live without thinking because we don't understand how important we are to the world. We don't know that the world will be missing out on something if we are not unleashed upon the world, if we do not serve our unique essence to the world. That's how I like to frame it. So we must reckon, as DDK would say, we must reckon what manner of man do I have to become to fulfill purpose? And we cannot stop at just realizing our weaknesses. I had my weaknesses right in front of my face. I could tell these were the things I struggled with. I could write a thesis on many of those things. But we have to come to a place where we cannot stop at realizing our weaknesses, because you aren't defined by your past. And let me know in the comment section what has landed for you, what you've gained, what you're picking, any connection points, anything that kind of has been highlighted for you in this discussion. And I'll just like to share some testimonies, I would say, from using some of these paradigms. These are some of the paradigms that we use at Girls Chat Network. And I'm going to share some testimonies from there. And I'm also going to share a personal story to conclude. So one of the things that happened from using these paradigms, from beginning to focus on identity, from beginning to focus on, understanding God's love, understanding who you truly are, from beginning to focus on the fact that life doesn't revolve around that concentric circle of self, that you're too small to be the center of your existence, from beginning to understand the place of purposeful service as the brewing pot for self-mastery, for self-efficacy. One of the things that happened is that currently we have at least 3 books in the pipeline from people who otherwise wouldn't even have thought to do so. Because we all came in with baggage. We all came in, including myself, we all came in with things from our past that genuinely had happened to us, that had taken away some things, so to speak, that seemed to have left us with things that we now have to deal with. And in many cases, secretly, because you're successful, physically speaking, things are going well. But you do know that some things in your personal space may not be going well. You do know that you have multiple breakdowns. You do know that maybe you sometimes have suicidal ideations, you're depressed, you're anxious, you feel like you have something to offer. It's just like a few years ago, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, a couple of friends, I believe some of them are on this live, they organized a birthday party for me. It was virtual, and they were asked to say something about me. Everybody, literally everybody said Eni is intelligent or Ajoke is intelligent. And of course, you would think, I don't have anything against intelligence. You think that this is something where you're like, oh yeah, they can see that I'm intelligent. But I came out of that meeting and I'm like, excuse me, I'm not just intelligent. I do have I do have things that are just brimming under the surface that you don't know, because I just have this deep-seated shame about some of the places I've been. And I know that I have so much to offer. And I know that many of us would know people in our circle like that, where you're like, there is something about this person. There is something, I know there is something about this person. And the truth is, when healing doesn't take place, when we actually do not focus on the shifts in mental paradigms that have to happen, it's very possible that that's all you would say throughout the person's lifetime. You're just like, there is something about you. Somebody said sometime, I think I saw a post online at some point, where somebody said, at some point in your life, you have potential. I think that's the way it was phrased. You have potential is an insult, because you're like, excuse me, I don't just want to have potential. I want to deliver, my dear. I want to execute things. And really, it's and I don't want us to confuse execution with success, so to speak. Um, and like I said, we have those books coming in. When I began to understand my God given identity, for the first time, I was able to negotiate my salary. And it was something I had not done before. And I was coming from a job that paid me almost like $10,000 less than where I was, what I was offered. And so you think, oh, this is more, you should accept it. But I'm like, excuse me, I have something to offer. And that's exactly what I said. I'm like, I'm coming with, a lot of potential. I'm coming with a lot of, knowledge that is going to impact the direction of this organization. So I can't take this. And then I did receive that increase, even though what I was offered was actually way more than what I was receiving in my previous job. All that to say that these are paradigms that have been tested. These are things that we use in at Girls Chat Network, and we've seen results. One of the other things that happened is the completion of my book, Blessed Beginnings. I know that I haven't shared this publicly yet, but one of the things with my book is that I used to write poems a lot. And for me, even though I do have a gifting in that area, poetry was a way of speaking without speaking. It was part of the manifestation of my being the voice, because I remember distinctly that as a teenager, every time I tried to write prose, I was writing about my story. I was writing about my past experiences. I was writing about the struggles that I was having due to the fact that I was abused or due to the fact that I was molested and things like that. And I realized that my story was bleeding through my pen, and it was too painful for me to see. So I distinctly remember as a teenager that I would write prose and I would literally tear it because it was just too painful. It was just too shaming. It was too shameful, so to speak. It was just something that I didn't feel confident enough to share with the world. And so I didn't write prose. I basically would just write poems. And in many cases, I think one of these days I would sit down with my poems, some of those that I've posted, and I'm going to unpack them because they are deeply meaningful to many of the things I've spoken about today. But what happened with this, with embracing some of these paradigms, is that I began to understand that I could do it. I could write prose. I began to, have that sense of confidence in myself to be able to write prose. And of course, I probably in another life, I would share the process for that, but that's not the topic of today's conversation. And also, of course, I'm here today speaking to you because of many of these paradigms that we've been using and that I found quite helpful. I'm going to leave you with a few thoughts. What is the world missing out or going to miss out on if you stay silent about all the things that you have within you? So if you stay as you are, if you do not aim higher, if you do not, share yourself with the world, serve yourself, serve your unique essence to the world, what is the world going to miss out on? Because definitely the world is going to miss out on something. And you need to remember that you can start where you are. Unbridle your imagination, serve your essence to the world, and set soar. If you enjoyed this video, let me know what stood out to you in the comment section. Share with your friends that could benefit from it. Let me know if you would like us to continue this conversation. And until next time, I love you. Stay unplugged.